There's other voices in the room. Some of you have met Karu, who's there with Linda. We brought him. He's not a therapy dog yet, but Linda and I do find that he's very grounding for us. I'm hearing a lot of echo. Is this supposed to sound like this? Okay. Oh, the speakers are at the other end of the room. These are not hot on this stage. Guillermo, that's a little weird. Unavoidable. Whatever. Okay, I'm going to say a few things before Diana comes up. Welcome to all of you. It's so fascinating to be here. We did the first 7 summits in this hotel. We went to a couple of Marriotts, took a little break, no good reason. We missed you. We're missing half of, when we did the breakfast order the last time in 2019, the order was for twice the size of the group that are here. It's an indication of how things are going and what's happening with the reality of our industry. And yet we're all feeling a lot of great vibes about being here and being together. I'm hearing so many positive comments. Just to see everybody together, it's a remarkable community. I forgot to do a land acknowledgement, and when I heard Kat do one last night, she adapted to the region. Land acknowledgements have become de rigueur in the arts community in Canada. I produce events and do land acknowledgement, encourage people to do them. The other conference that I was working on Monday in Montreal, we actually introduced it to presenters in Chicago and New York at Flushing Town Hall and Old Town School in Chicago, and they are now doing land acknowledgements and connecting to their Indigenous communities because the Canadians have been showing the way on how we're dealing with truth and reconciliation. For those of us who live here in Toronto, we know that it is the Mississauga, the New Credit, and the many, I'm getting coaching on pronunciations of the Haudenosaunee and the Wendat and the other peoples, the Algonquin, who were here before us in time, and in all the places that you live in Canada, you know that there's a greater awareness around Indigenous people and the issues that are beginning to be addressed. If you get a chance to talk to Doug Cox about some of the work that they're doing with CARE and organizations that's educating people. But you all read the news, you know what's going on, and we have to address those issues. Within the Blues Society board here in Toronto, we've actually had a discussion about how that addresses the history of the blues and how the roots of blues are drawn from slavery, the South in America, and the roots of our music, and it's partly why Diana is speaking today. Since the George Floyd murder in America, there's been a greater awareness of racism, systemic racism. I was just checking with our American friends about the holiday that is Juneteenth in the States. It's, I think, being celebrated, but we're just hearing that there's actually been things going on in Omaha over the weekend. It is the 19th, and it is celebrating the emancipation of slavery, and Texas being the first state where that occurred. And it's I don't know if Diana's going to mention it in her speech, but I think it's an interesting setup to what we're going to say today. There's other housekeeping that I'll just mention quickly. The Blues Society here is active. We have the Women's Blues Review is returning to Massey Hall. We have tickets on sale November 25. There are good seats still available for the Maple Blues Awards tomorrow. Unfortunately, often we are in a situation where we don't have good seats at this point, but tell your friends that they can come. This speech, these remarks, are live streamed, so if you're on your phone while Diana's talking, that's okay, because you are probably telling somebody to tune into the live tube or the YouTube. It will stay up there, and we'll share that after Diana wraps up. The other housekeeping I'll mention is that there are a couple panels this afternoon, Blues Money, where some grant writers are going to talk about what's going on with funding, and Blues Radio, where some of the folks that are involved in radio will also be talking about what's going on in the scene. The B2B sessions will, of course, take over this room, and it's Father's Day. So for all the fathers in the room, of which I am one, my daughter's getting married on August the 20th on Toronto Island. I don't know why I'm telling you all that, but Diana Braithwaite has been doing amazing work in this city for a long time. You guys had her out in BC for a little while. She and Chris were gigging out there and living out there, and she's just come back. Diana and I have known each other through her work around explaining the Underground Railroad and her family's history in coming here. It is a topic that the Blues Society is going to be delving into through her help and through Andrew Craig and some others who are looking at the history of this region. But through the improved awareness around cultural identity and matters that Diana exclusively and uniquely knows about, we want to hear her remarks today, and that's why we've welcomed her to be our keynote speaker. I hope you don't mind this sort of echo, Diana. You're a professional, so you are probably used to it, but I'm finding it a little disorienting, and so I'm going to get off the mic and hand it off to you, and I'd like you all to give a warm welcome to our keynote speaker, Diana Braithwaite.
Well, thank you very much, everyone, and good morning to you, and also for all the dads and the uncles and brothers, happy Father's Day. So my name is Diana Braithwaite, as you know, and I'm very pleased to be your keynote speaker this morning, and thank you all for attending. I said to the people at the table that you guys are the brave ones. So it's nice of you to be here. You know, George Floyd's daughter said, "My daddy changed the world." And it was so true. I believe that after his death, the world started to change. So there we were. The world was locked down due to the pandemic. And what were people doing? They were watching screens, televisions, news. And so as the world stopped and as time stood still, we were all witness to the devastating murder of a black man in public, live and close up. Murders like these had happened so many times in the past to black men and women, but this one was different. Yes, it was cruel, as it always was. It was heartbreaking and terrifying. But this time, the unique difference was that the world was watching. For everyone, all cultures and people who watched the news footage around the world, there was no denying what we were witnessing. Like Floyd's young daughter said, "My daddy changed the world." After Floyd's death, I believe that something changed in people as the horrible scene played over and over in our minds. It seemed that suddenly the world was ready to finally and truly address the elephant in the room, and the fact that there continues to be so much racism still going on. There are still different unwritten laws, different racially motivated responses that we as Black people face in our lives, in Canada, United States, and sadly around the world. So at that time, it was like every business sector and community organization, the banks, the governments, etc., were suddenly more aware than they'd ever been since the 60s about the fact that we have to do something supportive, inclusive. We have to start talking about topics that are uncomfortable here, and we have to do what we can to address this unequal situation. It became a bit like, there's a really big elephant in the room. It's not going away, and it's waking up, and it doesn't appear to be sociable. And it's making us very uncomfortable. Keeps bellowing and carrying on. Can't get over it, can't get around. And those changes that started to happen around the world after George Floyd's death, they trickled right down to the blues community. And so today, you are seeing right here that I am proof of that. The fact that I am here speaking to you as the keynote speaker, and the fact that I am Black, is a change. It took a long time, but it's the beginning of acknowledging the fact that within the blues community, there is an elephant in the room that needs to be addressed. Now, hopefully, I'm not appearing to be elephant size. Although when we were going to do the live stream, I heard that the screen was going to be pretty large. But anyway, I'm not an elephant, but I have been in the room, in blues clubs, festivals, in the blues world, and I've been watching and observing for a long time. And me being here is evidence of the fact that even in the blues world, conversations and discussions are now starting to take place about uncomfortable topics and things that need to be looked at and addressed. Because sadly, this wouldn't have happened 20 years ago, or even 3. But it is happening today. Conversations are happening all over North America and the rest of the world about how does the blues community measure up in the big anti-racism, discrimination, appropriation picture. Around the world and right here in Canada, you can find 2 different opinions. Some Black people are saying things like, we're being left out of our own traditional music. It's like we don't exist. Well, some others who are not Black are beginning to ask, are we appropriating Black culture? Are we ourselves discriminating? Can we do blues if we are not Black? So people are starting to talk about these things all over the world, and this is a good thing. So in 2022, there's the first Black keynote speaker at the Blues Summit. Up to now, there never was one. And the fact that there wasn't one for all these years seemed to be okay with a lot of people. I sat year after year in the audience at the Maple Blues Awards, seeing another reality happen until I couldn't any longer. There were sometimes hundreds of people in the audience, and maybe 5 to 6 Black people amongst them. Sometimes one, and usually none, on the stage. Yes, it will take time, but this has to change, somehow, in some way. So this is a very important step in the right direction, and it's time. Me being here is due to a change, a new way of thinking, that came out of a conversation about these kind of topics. The conversation came first, then the action. So the conversations are very important. And that's what I'm hoping we will do today. I'm hoping that this keynote speech will help to start a conversation about some topics, ideas that we need to look at. And I'm also hoping that some exciting ideas and plans will follow in the months to come as a result, as we figure out what action is needed to address some of these concerns. What was revealed within the blues world after George Floyd's death was that there were serious problems, attitudes, and important issues that need to be looked at within the many blues communities worldwide, including Canada. And there are changes and conversations that need to happen in order to make the blues experience here in Canada a better one. People, there's an elephant in the room in the form of uncomfortable topics and big changes that we have to make in our blues world before we all get stuck. We can't make any progress or sustain the life of the music that we love. When you heard that I was going to be the keynote speaker, my guess is that maybe some of you said, Diana Braithwaite, who the heck is she to be telling us anything? She doesn't have 50,000 hits on YouTube, or she ain't no good, or maybe I got the lowdown and out of town on her. Well, here's a little background on how this came about. Derek mentioned a little bit of it. 2020, after the pandemic hit and Floyd's death, Black Lives Matter released a statement. And what followed was a flurry of Facebook posts and comments written with people reacting to the statement. Some of those letters and posts on Facebook were from the blues community, directed at the TBS, really about what was the TBS's response or comment on the situation. Raha Javanfar, a violinist, and she was born in Iran, she wrote one of those letters to the TBS. Raha was a young woman that hosted the 2019 Maple Blues Awards. And she addressed some of the issues within our own blues society that she felt needed to be looked at in regards to the Black blues artists in Canada. And I was encouraged by what she did. I thought, this is different. She's not Black, but she's knocking on the door for us. For the first time, I felt that maybe there would be an opportunity for some of my thoughts and opinions about the situation we face as Black blues artists here in Canada to also be heard. Not only heard, but maybe there would be support of others to change up some things in a good way for all. As time went on, there were others that were supportive as well. So I wrote my letter to the TBS. I won't read the whole letter, but I just wanted to cover some of the points that were mentioned. I talked about the fact that I believe the opportunity was there for the Toronto Blues Society to become a role model for what could possibly be, or what could be possible for blues societies around the world. And that with the right changes and approach, the TBS could show the world how to do it, with people working together, listening to each other, and making intelligent choices about unique ideas and ways to change. And I suggested some other ideas as well, and said if we could have got past the fear on one side of the fence and the anger on the other, we could listen and respect each other to reimagine the TBS. I also mentioned that somewhere along the way, the attitude developed that the best Black musicians were born in the early 1900s and don't exist anymore. I disagree. I believe that there are Robert Johnsons, Koko Taylors, and Muddy Waters waiting to be heard right here in Canada, but they won't be discovered because there isn't anyone looking for them, and that I hope that this would change as well. Excuse me. It was an extremely difficult time. I was talking about some big changes. And I found that at the time, the TBS and myself were standing on each side of the rainbow with the pot of gold in the middle. And it seemed that there wasn't going to be any resolve. To top it off, the timing was off. There was a pandemic going on. Musicians and blues society are struggling to stay alive. The musicians aren't sure when or if there will be another live show. Blues society's not sure how they will survive. Tours canceled, no live shows. It didn't seem like the time to throw another weight on everyone's shoulders. So at that time, I felt that the conversation was going nowhere. I certainly didn't want to be the one leading the charge on cultural issues during a pandemic. And there were some actions and things that happened that just made the wedge between us more evident. And finally, there was silence, nothing. We were not communicating at all. Finally, I received an olive branch, a request for me to be the keynote speaker for the 2022 summit. And I thought about it. Should I accept the request or maybe just stay out of the whole thing? Maybe it was because my heart, soul, and life's work has been understanding this musical form, maintaining this musical form, sharing the music with my songs, trying to understand the business, and basically a connection that goes way beyond. Maybe it was my connection to the Underground Railroad and the determination that's in my DNA from that experience. Or it could be the ancestors like Bessie Smith, Muddy Waters, pushing me on to this moment. You have something to say, now say it for us. I don't know. All I know is that I accepted the invitation to give the keynote for the Blues Summit this year. I couldn't let the opportunity pass. Why keep commenting from the sidelines? So today, ladies and gentlemen, I feel like Rosa Parks, refusing to sit at the blacks-only back of the bus. I feel like Ruby Bridges, who at 6 years old was the first African-American child to desegregate the schools. I feel like Miss Jane Pittman, drinking from the whites-only fountain, and I feel proud today. I feel like there's hope, and I'm happy to be here. Today, I'm speaking on behalf of my ancestors who fought and have made it possible Thank you. Made it possible for my people to progress and advance from a horrible, brutal past, pardon me, to one where we have greatly surpassed their dreams and hopes for us. Who would have known this one is? Thank you. With our accomplishments and achievements in all areas and walks of life. And they continue to provide the inspiration for us to keep on going. So today I'm doing my part in creating change in the steps of my ancestors. So I'm grateful for the opportunity to reach a lot of people today and ongoing from here with a new perspective on things. We need to change within the blues community and some ideas along with it. I'm also really looking forward to continuing to work within the blues community after this keynote speech and throughout the next year. Recently, I also accepted an invitation to join the board. and I joined the board along with Keisha Wint, a black woman who is a fantastic vocalist. She also accepted the invitation. So for the next year, our plan and strategy is to look at some of the upcoming events at the Toronto Blues Society, see how we can add a black perspective to the mix. So watch out for that. We'll be looking at it one event at a time. Anyway, thank you to the Toronto Blues Society and Derek Andrews for the invitation to be here today. And to you all, thank you for coming to hear what I have to say. My topic is, let's start a conversation about the blues. And I'm going to present some interesting ideas to talk about to you and raise some issues that I would like you to keep talking about after you leave here. As time goes on, hopefully we will start to take some action on some of the things that are being talked about. I hope the conversation we'll start here today will bring more opportunities, insight, and sustainability to your individual journeys in the industry. What I'm going to ask you to do is to drop all the preconceived ideas about black, white, us, them, me, you, who has a right, who doesn't, and come to the table clear and free as we begin to address some positive ideas for how we can make the experience of blues a better one. And very importantly, how can we make this music thrive and be sustainable? Let's talk about attitude. Did you know people involved in the blues for the past 40 to 50 years are the ones that know more about the blues than any other generation? We know more than the people that first started the blues. Now is not the time to jump ship as it is getting uncomfortable. You got to hang in with us. Don't let bringing up some of these issues or the conversation make you feel bitter, disillusioned, feel that your life's work was wrong. All cultures, races, religions, white, Asian, indigenous, Jewish, Spanish, French, German. You enjoyed the blues for many a year. Now's the time to put your money where your mouth is and learn, listen, and reach out. Hear what we have to say. Let's be positive, upbeat. Let's be open to new ideas, and let's have faith that we can do this. Think about what you can do as individuals when you leave here. Do it for Muddy, John Lee, that lady that plays the guitar, Sister Rosetta Tharpe, Memphis Minnie. The main thing is, just don't be bitter. If you love the blues, and I know you do, or you wouldn't be here, you have to know that unless we make some serious changes and reorganize things, including gaining fresh perspectives, it could become a sinking ship. So let's adopt a winning attitude towards this conversation, and let's win. I know maybe now some of you might say, okay, here we go now. What did we do this time? It wasn't us. You might have felt that today you were going to be attacked or pushed out, chastised. To be honest, I'm saying that we need each other right now more than ever. If we want to keep this music alive and stop the ship from sinking, but there has to be some changes in order for this to happen. Hopefully we can bring two sides of the story together to make an even better story going forward. So when I hope when you leave here today that this address will inspire you to continue the dialogue, ask questions, consider situations, think about things, and that it will give you the confidence to ask somebody if you don't know. I have some ideas that might make the road a little less rocky, maybe something you can run with. The elephant in the room is waking up. and it's not going away. The people are growing, changing, like coming out of the wilderness, not willing to accept the old ways anymore. The blues experience 50 years ago is not the one today. I guess you could say that was then and this is now. But that doesn't have to be a bad thing. You don't have to walk away from it or feel hopeless. Here in Canada, we in particular have everything we need, all the opportunities to make this blues experience one that will be better than we ever imagined. I believe we can do this and win. So let's bring up a real hot topic. Ownership of the blues. Who owns the blues? We do. Black people. We own the blues. We have to own something after what we went through. Our connection to the blues goes far beyond who wrote the songs, who published the songs, who recorded, who played on the records. This connection goes deep to the music that came out of a time in our lives when we were taken out of Africa and sent to many countries around the world against our will. And this connection goes back to the time when our great-great-great-grandmothers and grandfathers were picking cotton in the fields, and the music they sang would keep them strong to face another day. We will always own the blues. It's in our DNA, and we own the blues because we paid for it with our blood, tears, our work, and our lives. For us, blues is more than a song. It's part of our story. Think of it like a tree with all these branches representing the different places that we ended up in from the slave trade, with the roots of the tree going back to Africa. So you have Black people born in Africa, taken to Brazil, where the music evolved into samba and Afro-Brazilian. In Trinidad, you have calypso, reggae in Jamaica, African-American Southerners, blues, African Canadians, banjo, old instruments, and Underground Railroad spirituals. All these branches. What connects us is where we all came from originally, the same tree with roots beginning in Africa. And then for those that left Africa, unfortunately, what connects us is our experience of the slave trade, which is a major part of our story, so it can't be forgotten. So blues is from the American branch, but all the musical forms are part of our story. And you don't have to have had to experience that story just to own the blues. You don't want to experience that story to own the blues. That story is filled with chains, abuse, death, captivity, loss of family. So believe me, you do not want to own that story. We didn't want to own that story. Slavery was unique to our story. Here in Canada, so many African Canadian families came here through the Underground Railroad, like my own. My great-great-grandfather escaped from the South and came to Canada, and he started a farm in Wellington County. Ever since I was a young girl, our family tradition was to sing spirituals and hymns together at family events. And I always wondered why all the songs were about crossing the river, a better place, keep on walking. When I grew up, I understood. Our African Canadian culture had developed out of an experience of running from the south to the north. So our music reflected that experience. We're the masters of the spirituals. We are a branch of the tree, but our roots connect with Africa. So this is how we came to own the blues and calypso and reggae and African music. Our experience connects it. The various musical forms evolved out of one experience. There's a whole connection we have. that goes way beyond the surface. When I was growing up, we were taught to acknowledge another Black person that we walked past or came across, walked by or came across. We developed a sense of connectedness, despite the fact that we may have been born in different places or even spoke different languages. But we were taught to acknowledge each other, I guess to say we're all from the same root of the tree. We share something in common. Our color and our story, it connects us. So in our world, we own all the music that has anything to do with our experience, Africa and its roots, stretching way beyond the Atlantic Ocean and the slave trade. And when we lose our connection, it's like part of the story is gone. That's why it's so important now to fix that, because in many ways, we lost ownership of the blues, and it started to be defined for us. Even in some cases, it isn't blues, but we're being told this is what blues is. Now it's taught to us. But every year, our people are progressing, developing, becoming more aware of things. And as the dust clears and we are starting to see our way, observing and understanding, more and more we are realizing that we actually share ownership with all this great music of the world, blues, reggae, soul, calypso, African, and have a right to do so. All the forms are soulful, healing, and very much loved by everyone, and they all stem from our African roots. But each musical form evolved in a different way, just like we did, like branches of the tree. There would be no blues without the cotton fields. No Willie Dixon, no Howlin' Wolf. All of them knew about plantations, sharecropping, the Ku Klux Klan, prison work gangs, mojos, poverty. That's what makes the blues so appealing. The heartfelt, soulful, true life experience of those people that worked in the cotton fields, the juke joints, played in the cities and the clubs, telling their stories through songs. So it's not a question as to who owns the blues. We own the blues. But here's the thing. Blues is a powerful medicine. That soul that's found in blues has changed people's lives. And you don't have to be Black for that to happen or to have experienced that. It's like medicine, blues medicine. Blues gets into your heart and soul, and you can't shake it loose. The sound of the guitar heals and soothes you. The harmonica evokes feelings from centuries ago. The singers can inspire you beyond words with the feeling of the song, or tell your personal story that happened to them, so you don't feel like you were the only one that experienced that. It can calm you. The drums can wake up your soul. The music can make you laugh, dance, even put you into a trance-like state. That's the blues. It's deep, it's healing, it's wonderful music. Blues has changed so many people's lives, and it didn't matter what color they were. I'm sure that many musicians here today would say blues has changed their life, even saved their lives, because they connected with it like nothing else. Some people connect with the blues because their lives were difficult, like many of the people that first did the blues, and they identify with the experience. Some connect with it because of the colorful, vibrant, passionate people and culture that goes with it. And some people just connect with the incredible, heartfelt music and drum beat that goes straight to your soul. How can you fight the music that you love? We don't want to deny people from living their dream, playing blues, singing blues, being a part of the blues scene. We know you can't go back in time. For us, we know that the horse is out of the barn. We know that the genie's out of the bottle and hypnotized, singing and dancing to the blues. There should be no guilt in loving the blues, in playing the blues, in loving this amazing culture that goes with it. Blues is medicine. We don't need less people to love the blues. We need more people to understand and enjoy the medicine, a gift from the African American experience called the blues. We need more people to enjoy, to heal, to discover, not to cut it out or stop singing or playing it. We don't need the numbers to go down. We need them to go up. In Canada, we have opportunities to expand the audience, the experience, to reach out to many other communities, new venues, be a part of celebrations and events that are already in place with this great music, blues. So we do need all cultures and each other right now to keep the music alive. But because it is Black music, we must be there. That's the missing link right now. We must be present and accounted for. We must be in that number. We must be involved and stay involved going on from here. Do you realize that if we really want the music to grow and develop, we, Black people, are the key to sustainability for this music? Because it's our history, our music. The music can't keep going without us being involved in it. Everyone knows that. So the blues industry growth is getting stuck when that's not being acknowledged. And it's not reflective on the stages or airplay and the awards or the audiences, the concerts, festivals, etc. The people are getting confused. They see blues, but they don't see Black. And their conscience makes them not sure. Audience become unsure and performers as well. And people start to back away, and numbers and participants drop, and blues societies lose their members. Everyone becomes unsure about their involvement or their place in the mix, or even if they're doing the right thing by being supportive of something that's not reflective. Something that nowadays actually promotes mostly white musicians, artists, performers. We can only go so far with the music if it stays as it is today. We need to unite and communicate to get past this. I believe that when Black people are involved in the music at various levels, taking leadership roles on the stages, being interviewed and heard on the radios, leading bands, being main stage acts, being looked at as important to the music, that the music and scene will grow as a result, and it will become more sustainable. There will be a better atmosphere, a better vibe, and more confidence about being involved in the music for everyone involved, concerned. We will feel that there's a future, and a good future. You know that song, Run On for a Long Time? That old song, you can run on for a long time, but sooner or later, God will cut you down. Well, we're all going to get cut down unless we straighten it out. And it's starting to happen now. And you know who's really going to do the cutting down? Well, in this case, it's going to be the young people. The next generation coming up, because they know they're different. They're into uniting all colors, all cultures, and they have a passionate feeling about things like this. There are some amazing young musicians coming up. I've heard some of them. But are they 100% confident going into blues? I'm not sure. And if our young people, all of them, don't get on board, what's going to happen in the future? Respecting all of our individual cultures is important to them. Even the little kids know about what racism is and what's allowed and what's not. You know that song Bessie Smith sings? In Black Mountain, a child can slap your face. Babies crying for liquor and all the birds sing bass. Well, a 5-year-old today, they won't slap your face because they know that violence is wrong. but they can tell you what is politically incorrect and what's not. So the young people won't stay with the blues as how it is right now for very long, with very little black presence on the stages, in the magazines. They'll tell you clearly that's appropriation. And I don't mean just the black youth, all the youth, Indigenous, Asian, white, Francophone, many different people. We didn't even know what the word appropriation meant when we were all doing the blues years ago. The politics were different, but things have changed. Young people today, they won't have anything to do with the music or stay with it if they know that something doesn't feel right. And if they don't get on board, the music won't thrive. So we, black people, have to be present and accounted for going forward from here. Our presence back in the heart and soul of blues, in the profile of the blues, can make the music more sustainable. But we shouldn't be put here and there as tokens, just stuck here and there like decorations, to make it look like something is going on, when if you go behind the scenes, it really isn't. I mean that we have to play a leadership role in the ongoing development of the music. Our thoughts and opinions need to be heard. Excuse me. I feel like saying, how's everybody doing? We have to start being in the picture and remain there. Recognition that we have a very important spiritual connection to the music. So we must have leadership roles, be consulted with for our opinions, be asked to speak about, like what I'm doing today from a black perspective, so more people can learn about our side of the story. We must be represented in every aspect, in the offices, on the boards, at festivals, concerts, in the bands, in the magazines, on the radios, in the contests, on the labels, etc. Things have to change. I really believe that when we start to be seen in these ways, everyone involved will feel more confident. And we can start building on the advancement of the music together. We'll have clarity. We must be important to the experience of blues. Our ancestors paid a high price for that right. Let's look at the color barrier and breaking it. In 2022, we don't have the same thing going on as in the past. But the fact is, a color barrier still exists. In many cases, there still is one. Do we really know each other? Blues broke the color barrier before in the past with positive results for all, and I believe that we can do it again. If we don't know each other, we're missing out on how we can talk about building a community and other blues business. Let's go back to the past for a moment to look at another interesting and really good conversation topic. Do you know that blues was one of the first musical forms that broke the color barrier in the 60s and 70s? It was a new thing for black blues artists from the US to tour and come to Canada and work with Canadian musicians. And that fortunate set of Canadian musicians in the 60s, many are now in their 60s, 70s, 80s, or older by now. They had the opportunity to meet and even work with the blues greats. Many Canadian bands backed their tours and shows, and there were a lot of musicians that had that incredible experience and opportunity. They backed up Muddy Waters, John Lee Hooker, Howlin' Wolf, Big Mama Thornton, Willie Dixon, Blind John Davis, Sunnyland Slim, and so many others from one side of the country to another. So many great blues friendships formed that people still talk about until today. I hear the stories all the time. So many stories as the blues legends and the musicians got to know each other. Most of the musicians weren't black. It was a new thing for both sides. That was crossing color barriers. Mostly it was all about the music. And they were figuring out the music, playing together, and got to know each other in the process. Many of those legends were quite surprised to see how these young people at the time could play the blues. I think that those musicians had no doubt in their minds about where the blues came from, the history of the blues. In fact, they thought the world of those black blues legends, worshiped those people with great respect. In that era, if you took away some of the greedy, exploited record companies that were present at the time, if you took away the discrimination that was all around them with different rules for both sides, and if you took away the unwritten racism that was prevalent, you'd usually end up with mutual respect for each other as musicians and as human beings. They got to know each other through the music, and in the process realized that they could actually get along, talking and hanging out, making music. That was groundbreaking. A lot of musicians I know personally right here in Toronto experienced that, and right across Canada. And it was also happening all over North America, in Britain, and in Europe. Look at the Rolling Stones and their bond with Muddy Waters. Canned Heat worked with John Lee Hooker. They broke the color barrier, which led to amazing results, friendships, opportunities. If politics were not a factor, musicians would just be playing music with whoever. Musicians love to learn. Try this, get this sound, this style, learn from each other, feel the great musical vibes from playing great music together. And those fortunate to play and work with the blues greats had a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. It was a new experience for both sides. Things hadn't gone too far at that time into a crazy world where black people went missing from the blues picture in a big way, like how they are today. It's like today it shifted completely to one side, and now the other side is missing. So now we're going to have to bring it back to the middle. If one group is getting all and another is getting none, it just creates a competitive, unfriendly environment. And there's resentment on one side and unsureness on the other. And no opportunity to get to work together or get to know each other. At the end of the day, we don't get to know each other because we're all annoyed or fed up with the whole thing. And if we don't know each other, and if everyone doesn't feel comfortable with the situation, how can we talk about better opportunities, share work or gig information? Maybe start Black-led multicultural bands that can increase our connections with different multicultural communities and contacts, grow as a blues community ourselves. Excuse me. People have to feel that they are not on the back burner in order to start a conversation. Otherwise, there's just anger and no communication. It's like these separate groups marching along, doing their own thing, and no communication between them. When those people integrated and worked together in the 60s, it brought both groups great opportunities, connection, tours, shows, and mutual respect. How do we level the playing field today so that we can all win, advance, improve the experience of being involved in the blues world as a musician, promoter, venue owner, board member? How do we start to build a more secure future for blues musicians, building audiences, raising the profile of blues in Canada? We have to encourage and increase the profile of blacks in blues, black-led bands, co-led bands. This is a slightly different aspect, but has to do with uniting, getting to know each other and working together. When is the last time we looked at the future of ourselves as blues musicians together, if ever? our seniors, which we have a lot of now. When's the last time we looked at any of these type of things? The music has kind of been in limbo with no defining lines, which is great. But as Black people are more visible and take ownership, there suddenly will be a sense that this feels right. And then we can start to grow and look at important topics that we could never broach before. I believe that the steps that we start to take now can keep blues alive with a new energy, and those steps will actually be good for our future. If we can stop for a moment to fix the problem, we'll have to go right back to fix the foundation first. Think of it like a great new building of blues instead of house of blues. Black-led blues with everybody, all cultures involved. No one would be left out, and all are welcome to our building of blues. I'm hoping that we can get to the stage where more of these conversations can take place in the blues world on all levels, and especially amongst musicians. We are the ones that have the most to lose if things keep going the way they are, and the most to gain if they go in the opposite direction. If we can take a look at the situation and balance it out so that the group that is on the outside feels better about their place in the scheme of things, I think you will most likely get a more productive conversation going, which would lead to really great creative ideas, unity, improving the whole experience of being involved in the blues scene in Canada. This would then lead to more opportunity, connections, more diverse audiences and venues, and more work for everyone. Somehow in the blues scene today, the Black connection went missing. In many ways, it almost became unnecessary. Bring the Black back to the picture, and let's see how the business grows. This is another reason why I think with more acknowledgement and addressing some of these issues, we can all benefit in the long run. We have so many diverse cultural groups living here in Canada, and as a result, we have opportunity to reach audiences we never imagined. But once again, people love to hear about other people's cultures from that culture directly, and they usually don't want it to be paraphrased. It's hard for blues to grow in this environment. So I believe, like in the 60s, we're going to make history again in the blues world. Except this time we can break the color and the culture barrier. Breaking the color and the culture barrier. What an amazing day that will be. And that's a really good discussion for all of us to keep going. Excuse me. So how do we do all of these things? Right now I'd like to talk a little bit about ideas for how to actually incorporate some of these changes we're talking about into your own blues societies, venues, bands, etc. I don't have all the answers, and this speech is an attempt to start a conversation. It's important to realize it's not going to happen overnight. And if you live in a smaller community, your approach will be different than the one that happens in a larger urban city. So everything will be relative. And please understand, I'm not saying throw everything that you're doing out the window. There have been a lot of great things going on that have helped to sustain the blues and keep it going. I guess what I'm saying is take a look at the whole picture and see where you can make adjustments, changes within your own world that can move things forward into a more progressive world. So in Canada, let's look at the blues societies. They're reaching mostly white audiences, members, etc. So up to now, they're promoting the blues and keeping the current scene alive. But they've been perpetuating the problem without realizing it. kind of like preaching to the converted. But things are changing. I see it. I've seen it especially in the last couple of years. People are realizing that this, and they're trying to change for the better. Maybe you can try some of these different approaches and ideas for your events throughout the year. Add some spice to the mix. Do something different. Can you imagine how great it would be to start to change things up a bit with a heartfelt, genuine, enthusiastic attitude towards the process for a good reason and end result? Create a buzz in your communities about it. To know that you will actually feel more at ease about what you're doing as a blues society. Know that you're part of an amazing blues scene that maybe is doing some Black-led concerts with multicultural bands because you believe in it and you're not being forced to be politically correct and you think it's a great idea. Like I mentioned, every blues society is different. If you live in a remote place, it may be difficult. But is there any way to have any Black people on your board, even if it's through Zoom? Once again, not just as a token. Okay, we did it. We'll just keep going along as usual. And they're not really involved. But we have one. And you know, if you're looking for board members to add to your board, they don't have to know everything about blues, but they should be willing to want to learn about the blues. We have to be thinking outside of the box. They should have an interest in making history, understanding cultural issues, not wanting to throw the baby out with the bathwater or change too quickly, but be definitely into providing suggestions, ideas, and ways to move things along and make some cultural changes. And you can also hire people to work with your boards around these topics and issues. Can you bring in, oh, I thought that was my time. That's okay, Rick. You can also hire people, excuse me, to work with your boards around these topics. Can you bring in guest speakers, Black people to speak on your board and learn? Maybe to go a little bit more in depth into about what you want to do and how you want to do it in order to take a step in the right direction. Don't assume that you know it all. Maybe make a plan for the year with these thoughts and ideas in mind. How are we going to move from here to there? A few things, a few changes. We live in a country where the Black population is much smaller, different. It's unrealistic to think that things would be the same as the States. This is Canada. We're much smaller than the US. But let me explain. We're on a mission in our own little unique way. We're taking steps to include Black people in every part of our blues world in Canada. And I know that the horse is out of the barn and running, and that's okay, because we can get it back. For musicians, how to be a blues ambassador and still rock the joint. If you're not a Black person and you're doing the blues, one thing to keep in mind, song choice, song check. So you love that old song, but the lyrics, one simple check you can do. Would you sing this blues song in front of an all-Black audience? Because maybe that day might come in our new reality. Would you be comfortable? Something like, gone are my friends from the cotton fields, gone from the earth to a better land. I know I hear their gentle voices calling old Black Joe. That one's definitely not the one. So if you're wondering, should I? Is it okay? Not sure? It's probably not the one. So just do a song check. It might be slightly censoring our art form, excuse me, and our musical right. Pardon me. But there are still some songs to avoid doing if you're not Black. No one Black is in your band, and if you don't want to make any Black people in the audience feel uncomfortable. like those real Black experience songs, like Lead Belly's song called Black Girl. Black girl, don't lie to me. Tell me, where did you sleep last night? In the pines, where the sun never shines. I shivered the whole night through. That's a great song, but you got to pick and choose timing. Our song, or songs about chains, slavery. If you're not a slave, probably not a good choice. If you're wondering if it's okay, it probably isn't. I guess this would be called cultural sensitivity. Songs about working in the cotton fields. Also, you may not have the opportunity to have a Black musician in your band, but if you do, what about a partnership co-lead? In this whole process of change, it's important to know how to lead, but also know how to follow. In all of these approaches, you don't always have to lead or be in charge. Let other people lead sometimes. Encourage them to. If it's the right person, you would be surprised to see where their leads can take you. Another idea for musicians, if you can't make any changes with the show you've been doing for years, you're an established act, you can't add any musicians, it is what it is. Another really big change idea, how about after or before one song during every show, you add a thank you towards what Black music has given us. I'd like to take a moment right now to show appreciation for all the Black men and women that gave us this music and to acknowledge what it was like for them going through this and so on. Thank you. And how it affected your life. That's easy, but it goes so far. That alone can make a huge difference in the blues experience for yourself and for your audiences. Presenters, if you're having a show, can you mix it up? If you don't have a Black act on stage, can you get a Black MC? Because it's blues. And during the show, can they talk a little bit about the blues and where it came from? Or do a Zoom call with a Black performer, a musician, as part of the show, if possible? Or if it's not possible to have a Black person attend or take part live or do a Zoom call, maybe someone or yourself could do a little talk about how in our love for the music, we've forgotten to acknowledge the history of the blues and remember where it came from, and we want to make sure we do that now. How grateful we are to the people that first made the music that we all enjoy today, with some of the names of those first blues singers and performers. Can you dedicate a show to some of the blues greats in the US or Canada, or ones that had a presence in Britain, Europe? Of course, reach out and make sure you invite Black people to your shows and tell them why you want them to attend. Ask people to take part, to volunteer, to be on your committees. Festivals, the same things, of course. And also, maybe try to make sure that the blues is the blues. We don't really have the right to call it something else. That's what the people called it, the ones that created the music. They called it the blues. Do we play a 12-bar blues with blues changes and call it a classical minuet? We have to start respecting the blues, like how we do classical. People don't just change up classical music unless they tell you it's being changed up. This is a new works by so-and-so, a modern arrangement of Sonata B, played with a flugelhorn, violin, and a drum machine. They don't start changing it up without saying that they're changing it up. Blues is different, of course, and that's the beauty of the music. It is accessible. It doesn't have all the restrictions. But once again, sometimes it's going too far, and it can be promoted, something can be promoted as blues. It's really not blues at all. That would be great for our attempt to preserve and keep the music going as a respected art form, 12-bar, 8-bar, blues changes, country is country, classical is classical, and blues is blues. If it's being called a blues, but it's not a blues, that's a blues interpretation, blues influence, or blues blend. I know that music must evolve, and we are trying to maintain the integrity of the tradition and the musical genre. In the past, we never really had anyone to stop any of these things from happening. It was anything goes. We didn't have the boundaries, so we're trying to create them now. So how do we get to know, bring out Black audiences? How do we meet them, know where they are, get them out to the shows, if possible, involved in our activities, our festivals? What are some of the things we could do in this whole new way of walking, new way of talking picture? We have a Black population here in Canada. Some of them love blues and jazz, and they're in every province across Canada. And for the most part, they're not being included or coming out to the shows, usually because they don't think they can relate to it, because they don't see any Black people involved at any level. Many of us African Canadians whose family came here through the Underground Railroad and settled across Canada, we have a lot of the same customs and traditions as the African Americans, in particular Southern traditions. And we have communities in every province across Canada. We've got barbecues, picnics, historical events, festivals. We have Black settlements across the country with museums and cultural centers, etc. And we're proud of it. And for the most part, we're friendly people. Think outside the box, presenters, festivals. Maybe reach out to Black cultural centers. In Ontario, there are many. And in every province across Canada. We'd like to team up with you, do a partnership, do a blues event. And we're trying to pay tribute to the Black men and women who first started the blues and get back to the roots of blues. We'd like to have a partnership with this event. There are people from the Caribbean, people from Africa. Some of them love the blues as well. Maybe a Black-led blues and jazz night with a Caribbean or African center involved. Collaborations. This could be for promoters, festivals, blues societies. Imagine this if you put it all together. Your board has a Black member or members. You reach out to the community. You collaborate with a Black organization to do a blues event. Of course, if you can, you have Black performers in the mix, maybe a Black-led band or another band with a co-led band. Or you bring in a special Black history segment to your festival, or Black volunteers announcing your performers and talking about the blues at your festivals, or university students, even special guests, MCs, like family members of some of the Black legendary people who lived in the city or province where the festival is being presented. We have them in every province. Can you imagine if this is going on around the country? We're starting to make history. Now we're starting to say something. And you're really contributing to the new way we present the blues here in Canada. So what about the Black community? Black musicians, a lot of people are feeling bitter and angry, not hopeful. It's been a lot of years seeing our culture paraded in front of us and being left out of the mix. Like I said before, it's going to take two sides to write this new story. So we have to be open-minded and give things a chance. And I'm directing this to the Black people in the room. Where are they? It's just my daughter and me. But anyway, it's going out on Zoom. I hope 2 years from now this will be changed. We have to be open-minded and give things a chance. We have to be open to conversations, dialogue, getting to know people, getting involved again, bringing in new ideas, learning more about the music, seeing hope, good things ahead, being optimistic. not falling into the same old mentality. Taking some of these ideas and approaches to producers, promoters, concerts, clubs, yourselves. And we have to step in and put ourselves into leadership positions, learn more about the blues, our history, join the boards, volunteer, network, and work together with others. Start to have an impact on the direction of the music. We have to be seen and be heard. Excuse me. I feel there can be some amazing collaborations also with Indigenous people and the blues in Canada. We've seen this with the New Orleans Festival, Mardi Gras, and with many festivals around the world. And we have our own story and relationship here in Canada. So that's also something I'd like to encourage. Black-led Asian bands, French blues bands, co-led bands, for all cultures. If you're in a situation where your band is black-led, and I don't mean just a token person there, or just, with no power and not being able to make any changes, but it's all about, if you're doing a co-lead, you really can't go wrong. We can't expect to be just like America, where we have so many people involved in the music, but we can definitely try to do our best working with the people that we have here. It's really about co-leading, but it's not about taking over. And that would be going backwards. And that's not what this is all about. I'd like to talk a little bit about a certain group of individuals that did some important things towards keeping blues alive behind the scenes, usually without rewards, purely because they loved the music. Most are probably in their 60s, 70s, and 80s by now. These people did something very important for the blues. And what they did was start to become even more helpful and useful today as things develop and progress. When the civil rights movement was taking place, blues was sometimes looked at as not politically strong music by many people within the Black community, kind of like that old blues. We don't want to sing any more of those downtrodden songs, no more old songs. The music was seen as not keeping up with the times. Plus, Black people were also fighting for their lives at the time, for civil rights, equal pay and equal opportunity, the right to attend schools, so it wasn't a high priority. At that time in history, it was the real blues lovers around the world, most who were not Black, that kept and preserved the music. They kept it alive when we were not able to. And that's a great historical chapter that not too many people are aware of. I think it's important to acknowledge them. This whole story is an incredible one when you really think about it. This was happening all around the world. People of all colors, cultures, and nationalities, religions, speaking different languages, fell in love with the music. And they were collecting records, preserving the music, interviewing people, gathering photos, making documentaries, keeping the art form going through all these times, usually without pay. For those people, it really wasn't about exploiting. It was for the love of music. And they did this preserving when we could not see our way to do so because of racism or just not giving it high priority when we were fighting for equal rights and the right to attend schools. Most of those people from that generation knew there was importance to the music. You loved the music. You collected the records, the photographs, the books, the interviews, the musical instruments. You learned about the history, knew every detail, every story behind the blues greats. And that's an unusual situation. But what would we have today if this didn't happen? Even going way back to the 30s, when we didn't have the opportunity to record and save the music, it was people like John Hammond Sr. that went around and recorded songs so we can hear them now. And there's so much information and music available as a result. Work songs, classic blues, folk blues, Piedmont, All the musicians, scholars, music collectors, writers, DJs, you were European, you were Black, you were British scholars, Spanish, Asian, DJs, French, Italian, Jewish, First Nation, you were everybody, and so many more. But blues reach people from all these backgrounds, religions, cultures. Thank you. Because of your love of the blues, you help to keep our history and musical story alive and available. And that's something to talk about and for us all to be thankful for. Well, in closing, as I look around this room, and even being here in the banquet hall, I have to think of my parents. Both have passed now. I know if my mother was here, she would look around and say something like, my, look, look how things have changed. Your dad and I wouldn't have been allowed into this building when we were younger. And Black people wouldn't have been served in most of the restaurants on Yonge Street, or allowed to skate at the skating rinks, or go to dances in some of the venues, or live north of Bloor Street. It's good to see how things have changed. Since that time when my parents experienced that discrimination in Toronto, where they lived, things have changed. This whole concept that I've been talking about is not going to happen overnight. And there are varying degrees of what you can do, depending on where you live. And there's no blanket solution. But we have the choice, and I believe if every one of us does one small thing, it could bring about really amazing results for our future. So I hope you will keep this conversation going. I hope you will keep the conversation going and follow up on some of the ideas and suggestions that were presented here this morning. So really and truly, ladies and gentlemen, that's all I have to say today. I did what I came here to do. I didn't know I was going to be in tears for most of it. And the rest is up to all of us to see where this journey will lead us. Well, I personally am looking at the road ahead, and I'm seeing great opportunities for us all. I see forgiveness, and I see healing. I see people choosing to take the high road. I see exciting, fun, innovative musical times and experiences for people. Times that they'd never imagined they'd have. I see great music shows, people meeting new people. I see people summoning up their courage to venture into unknown waters. I see today and I see tomorrow. I see all of us working towards a unique, really fantastic blues community in Canada. But most of all, I see what brought me to this moment. And that is hope. And I really hope that you see that too. Thank you. Here. Thank you. Thank you. Oh.
Does anyone have any tissues?
My daughter went to get one.
Tissues are at stage left.
Oh, thank you.
There's a few tears in the house. That was a lot to absorb, Diana. Thank you very much. We asked if Diana would do a bit of a Q&A. We have panels that are starting very soon, so we don't have a lot of time. But if you wish to throw anything out?
I can also be reached through my email, info@hotblues.ca, or you can always find it through our website, hotblues.ca, my name, and I'll be happy to follow up with any questions. And
there's a lot of organizers in the room, Diana. I think you've influenced everyone with your remarks. It was very powerful.
Good.
And some journalists. Raise your hand if you have a question. If you want to talk to Diana afterwards, I think maybe you can just talk to her personally.
Here, yeah.
She's here with Chris and her daughter. And I have tiny housekeeping. Somebody lost their glasses.
Thank you.
Thank you, Diana. I'll just be over here to stage left if somebody has realized that their glasses are missing. I got them. The panels start at 1 o'clock, and you know what to do for the rest of the afternoon. Hope you enjoyed your breakfast and this keynote. It's been great to have you here.